हे एवरीवन, गुड मॉर्निंग एंड वेलकम बैक टू द चैनल। और आज इस वीडियो में हम कवर करेंगे सारी इंपॉर्टेंट न्यूज़ दैट हैज हैपेंड इन द मार्केट और उसका आगे क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट एंड डिस्कस अबाउट द न्यूज़ इन डिटेल। So let's start with the big news from the RBI, where the RBI has kept the repo rate unchanged at 5.5% in its latest monetary policy committee meeting, maintaining a neutral stance. So basically, simple terms में देखें तो borrowing cost from banks won't change for now, but RBI has left the room to act later if needed. Also, if we see the outlook update, so there is a good news on the growth front because RBI has raised the India's GDP forecast for FY26 to 6.8% and lowered the inflation forecast to 2.6%. Governor Sanjay Malhotra highlighted that GST rationalization and stable food prices are helping keeping the inflation under control, which would allow policy easing in the future. So basically, India's Forex reserves stand at around $700.2 billion, which is enough for 11 months of imports. And these were the broader economy highlights. Strong remittance are expected to keep the current account deficit in check. Banks are better positioned to handle the risk, and credit growth remains strong. And importantly, UPI transactions will remain free. No charges are being imposed. And overall impact, if we talk about it, this decision is expected to boost consumer sentiment ahead of the festive season, signaling stability while keeping the future options open. Now, speaking of the festive season, this brings us to the auto industry, which has seen a strong performance in September, and September turned out to be the most strong month for India's automobile sector. So we saw that Tata Motors led the pack, जहां पर उसके passenger vehicles का sale jumped around 47% and commercial vehicle sales up to 19%. Hyundai reported 10% growth in overall sales and Mahindra saw exports rise 43% while Bajaj Auto clocked 9% growth overall. And the reasons behind these pickup, जो main reasons देख सकते हैं, that were the recent GST cut which was on two-wheelers, making them more affordable, and the festive season demand and easing supply constraints. And while India sees growth over in the US, things are looking quite different, where the US has officially entered into with a government shutdown. So the details for this could be like President Trump and Congress failed to agree on funding by the October 1st deadline, and around 7,50,000 federal workers could be furloughed, with some offices potentially closed for weeks. And essential programs like Medicare, Mediaid, and the Pentagon will continue, but staffing shortages may disrupt the other services. And Democrats are demanding funding for healthcare subsidies, while Republicans, they are backed by Trump's, they refuse to negotiate. And these shutdowns, they can inflict economic cost, fear, and delays in job reports and other data, while ripple effects across the economy. Now back to India, we have some exciting news in the pharma sector, especially for Pfizer India. Pfizer India shares saw a sharp 8% jump on October 1st, closing at 5,442 rupees on the NSE. And the reason for this is mainly the Trump administration announced a deal for the patients to buy prescription drugs at discounted prices via a federal website called Trump RX. And some medicines could see price cuts up to 85%, while Pfizer will lower the prices for the Mediaid program. And about Pfizer India, their focus areas on vaccine, hospitals, internal medicines, immunology, and popular products include DX, Dolonex, Enbrel. Now, the impact of this move makes essential medicines more affordable for consumers and strengthens the Pfizer's positioning in the Indian market. And now, finally, let's look at our last news, which is the major government update affecting millions of employees. And the Union Cabinet has approved a 3% hike in dearness allowance for central employees and dearness relief for pensioners. So this is effective from October 1st, 2025, and on top of the existing 55% of the basic pay or pension, and the beneficiaries would be around 49 lakh employees and 68 lakh pensioners, and the budget impact could be around 10,000 crores per year. Now, earlier in March 2025, DA was increased by 2%, and this new hike is aimed at offsetting the inflation and maintaining the purchasing power. And earlier in March 2025, DA was increased by 2%, and this Now, to sum up the market news for today, we started with the repo rate unchanged at 5.5%, GDP growth up to 6.8%, inflation down to 2.6%, which is good for stability. And then we covered the news about the auto industry where Tata, Hyundai, Mahindra, Bajaj, all of them saw strong sales in September due to GST cuts and festive demand. Then the US shutdown where 7,50,000 federal workers are affected, some services may be delayed. And then we covered the news about Pfizer India, whose shares went up to 8% after the US deal for cheaper medicines and helps the patients and strengthens the business. And lastly, we covered the news about DA or DR hike, where 3% increase for central employees and pensioners from October 1st, helping with rising cost.